elected positions of responsibility, then the ANC is incomplete. Their self-image and self-interest have become the barometer of determining the success of our conferences. Every member of the ANC has a role to play. We all have the responsibility to serve the movement in our different capacities at a given time. We also, comrades, need to guard against those who use their elected positions to abuse their power, to sideline and marginalize other members of the ANC. It is the task of those who are elected to ensure that they embrace those who did not support them. Because leaders must show that they are leaders of the entire membership. The greatest enemy of the ANC is the ANC itself. And the only thing to save the ANC is the ANC itself. The ANC can only survive in the next generations if its members appreciate the historical necessity of the principal theory of unity and cohesion. The only way to achieve unity is to tolerate each other, is to harness each other, is to accept different views, is to learn to be inclusive, is to be patient, is to provide leadership, is to be humble and serve everybody. No arrogance as a leader, is to know how to talk with people. The common feature of the tendencies of the winner takes all, taking root within the ranks of our movement, is counter-revolutionary. We are therefore making a clarion call to this plenary session of the 9th Provincial Conference of the ANC in Limpopo to put at the center stage the fundamental principle of unity and cohesion of our movement. The unity and cohesion is the cornerstone for the success of our national democratic revolution. Without achieving this task, comrades, we will not be able to realize the revolutionary task for radical socio-economic transformation of our society. Without achieving this task, we will not be able to fulfill the dream of achieving a better life for all our people. We are elected into positions of responsibility for continuity and change. We are elected into positions of responsibility to embrace and unite all our people for the unity of purpose and unity of action. The foundation upon which the ANC was formed in 1912 has always been based on the fundamental revolutionary principles of unity of purpose and unity of action. The question we need to pose to ourselves is, why did the founding fathers and mothers of our glorious movement place such a great price on the indispensability of the unity of purpose and unity of action? The message of unity of purpose and unity of action developed and evolved over time as a response to the exclusion of more than 80% of the black population from the South African nationhood, which came into existence with the passing of the Union Act of 1909 after the end of the Anglo-Boer War. Only 20% of the exclusively white population qualified to be true citizens of our republic in terms of discriminatory laws passed with the formation of the Union of South Africa. And throughout this period of decades of years of struggles, the ANC had been advancing a worldview which sought to achieve an inclusive nationhood based on the values of human freedom, dignity, equality, opportunities to all our people. A worldview to be achieved by all those people of our country, irrespective of their color of skin or their cultural and religious convictions. The ANC sought to assert these rights in a country in which the majority of people were deprived of the right of ownership of land, following centuries of systematic land dispossession and colonial conquest, an act which spearheaded the most protracted forms of struggle over the historical period. It was this political process of the exclusion of African people in particular, and black people in general, from the citizenship of the newly formed nation of the Union of South Africa, which prompted our founding fathers and mothers to assemble in Mangaung in 1912 to form this giant elephant, the African National Congress, a revolutionary national liberation movement which has over the century of our struggle strive for the attainment of unity of purpose of action. This is the commitment we have carried over the period to unite our people into action, to overthrow the racist apartheid regime. Throughout the years, the ANC has been transformed into a stewardship for achievement of this noble objective. This is the most glorious path which has built our movement into the monument we see today. I'm talking about unity and I'm emphasizing it, comrades. Kopano ke matla. Until everybody, every member of the ANC understand that this is the year of unity. This is the year of renewal. This is the year to conduct ourselves in a particular way. This is the year to give our people and the whole South African nation, give them confidence. This is the year where we can actually make things happen and we can win general elections with overwhelming majority. Confronted by the realities of the total disregard of the interest of the majority of black people by the Union of South Africa, and in the absence of national organization to pursue these goals, they worked towards the founding of the South African Native National Congress. The award-winning orator and intellectual Pixley Kaisaga Kaseme was entrusted with the task of formulating a theoretical concept of the subject of the South African Native National Congress. And in carrying out this important task, Pixley Kaisaga Kaseme focused on the question of the Native Union, arguing that, after all, that was the Congress was going to be. He emphasized on unity, which was to cut across ethnic divisions without downplaying diversity. Ethnic divisions without downplaying diversity. On completion of his task, he urged leaders of provincial congresses to rise above petty personal differences, selfishness, ethnic divisions, and be equal to the task of the formation of the National Native Congress. And in his key address to the first convention of the African leaders before the first conference of the ANC, he categorically stated that the Native Congress was not just going to represent the overwhelming majority of the people of South Africa, but more importantly, the section of the population which had known nothing but violent legislations from the Union government. It was clear that the formation of the ANC in 1912 was not an accident of history, but the continuation of the anti-colonial struggle that had already begun in different parts of sovereign African region. It was a logical development of the realities of the marginalization of the majority of black population throughout the region. And from its inception, the ANC was to serve as the parliament of the people of Southern Africa. It was the voice of the people which did not only demand the end to the white minority domination and national oppression, but to explore and develop a framework for an inclusive, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous Southern Africa. And the first elected President General of the newly formed national movement, Comrade John Dube, took to the fore the important question of unity as the central feature of the organizational building and cohesion. We went around the country on a political pilgrimage, as the leadership of the ANC has done, of preaching unity amongst the oppressed people of our country, first and foremost. During this campaign, to recruit new members into the ANC at Eshowe in 1912. Comrade President General Dube, he said the following profound words about the importance of unity of purpose and action. And I quote, comrades, "We have long been asking for representation. We commenced asking the government of Natal before the Union. We asked because of our not having a voice in the making of laws affecting us. Laws, even which are against our feelings. I say, let's unite not only amongst ourselves, but with the Tongas, the Swazis, the Sothos, the Mpondos, and no longer refer them with contempt. We want the South African native subjects of His Majesty the King, both within the Union and beyond it, to unite and ask, why is it that we native people living here, subjects of the King, should have no representative," close quotes. From its formative stage, the leadership of the ANC believed in the struggles for just cause of the wishes and the aspiration of the oppressed people of our country. Though they understood fully well that Britain was behind the proclamation of the Act of the Union, which excluded the majority of our people from socio-economic power, they always understood it was through dialogue to reach for a settlement which will give rise to peace and justice for all our people. And one of the most fundamental grievances for the African people was the issue of the ownership of land. This problem of centuries of systematic land dispossession of the African majority culminated with the passing of the Native Land Act of 1913. And that's why when we look at the question of land, we should not start at 1913. We should go back to the 1600s and 1800s. We must go back, comrades, and claim the land and ensure that we don't confuse our people. We implement the conference resolution, which says we are going to take our land back without any compensation. The act evicted African people from the white-owned land in quotes. The white land-owned land in quotes, which comprised of more than 90% of the land in the Union. It forbade those Africans who remained on so-called white-owned land to move from one farm to the other, and forcing them to work for 90 days for the white farmer on whose land they reside without compensation. One of the untold acts of oppression and exploitation, which prompted the first Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Saul Platje, to make an observation that the natives were made a pariah on the land of their birth. African farm dwellers were not allowed to make sharecropping, and as a result being forced to move to overcrowded reserves. And that's why you see us and you find us in the past in the old former homelands, divided Basotho le, Maxhosa le, Batswana le, Mavenda le, and they actually confine us to those far areas where there is no wealth, where there is nothing, comrades. Numerous high-power deputations consisting of many leaders of the ANC, amongst them John Dube, Reverend Khubusana, Alfred Mangena, Reverend Tlepu, Fenyang, Saul Msani, Dylan Taga, Saul Platje, went to London to object to the promulgation of the Land Act. And the ANC Secretary General, Saul Platje, spent the years 1915-1917 in England, campaigning for the restoration of the land to the black people of South Africa. And that's why the election of Josiah Gumede as the President General of the ANC in 1927 brought a new momentum for the unity of the revolutionary alliance of our country. His friendship with one of the leaders of the South African Communist Party, James Laguma, led to the change of his materialistic views about the South African liberation struggles. And he took further the idea of unity of purpose and action with the solid foundation of the building of the alliance between the South African Communist Party and the Labour Federation of our country. And through the influence of the Communist Party, the characterization of the Black Fascist Republic was adopted, with the understanding that the struggles for the liberation of the people of our country has assumed a national and class character. His thoughts about the character of South African Revolution was confirmed by his speech during the first international conference of the League Against Imperialism in Brussels in 1927, when he said, and I quote, "We would remind the whole of Europe that they are responsible for these conditions. Remember the alliance of Berlin, when Europe agreed to divide Africa into spheres of influence. Remember the promises which were made. That is the imperialism which is governing Africa today. I appeal to you, comrades, it is your lot to save, if it is your lot to save humanity, to take this thing seriously. I'm glad to say that in South Africa there are communists. I'm not a communist, but we find that members of the Communist Party are the only people who are with us in spirit, and we are watching them, close quotes. I appeal to you," he further continues, "comrades, to realize that the position before you in this Congress means the great responsibility. There are two forces waiting today, imperialism and workers' republic in Russia. We hear little of it. We hear much against it. I will point out that I wish to learn more and more of it. We shall have to put these two on a scale and see which would be the best to ally with," close quote. At the same forum, Gumede co-authored and jointly moved a resolution with James Laguma and D. Coleraine of the South African Trade Union Federation, which explicitly committed the ANC to a multi-class and multiracial alliance. And it reads as follows as I close. I quote, "that in order to combat the present phase of wealth exploitation by capitalism and imperialism in colonies and semi-colonies and semi-colonial countries, which same imperialism is responsible for the lowering of economic and social conditions of the workers in the home countries, with their huge army of unemployed competing for an existence, we call upon all the workers of South Africa, irrespective of color, to strive for closer unity and working class solidarity, realizing that the unity of all workers, irrespective of race, color, or creed, is essential to the successful issue of the fight against exploitation and imperialism. This Congress calls upon the workers of South Africa, both white and black, to strive for that mutual understanding that will bring about class unity, working class unity, and solidarity in their own interest and those of all other workers and oppressed people of the world." And on his return, giving a report to the conference of the ANC, Josiah Gumede spoke eloquently, comrade, of his appreciation of the alliance with the Communist Party. And he said the following about the Soviet Union, I quote, "I have seen the new world to come, where it has already begun. I've been to the New Jerusalem," close quote. The leadership of the ANC under President Chief Albert Luthuli continue to promote unity of our people for the victories of our struggles for liberation. And in his biography, he says, I quote, "From the beginning, our history has been one of ascending unities, the breaking down of tribal, racial, and creedal barriers. The past cannot hope to have a life sustained by itself, wrenched from the whole. This remains for us, before us, the building of a new land, a home for men who are black, white, and brown, from the rules of the old narrow groups of censuses of the rich cultural strain which we have inherited. There remains to be achieved our integration with the rest of our continent. Somewhere ahead, there begins civilization, a culture which will take place in the parade of God's history beside our great human synthesis, Chinese, Egyptian, Jewish, and European. It will not necessarily be black, but it will be African. He defined the South African national oppression and class exploitation in the following way. I quote, "I do not find myself amongst those who tend to reduce all human affairs to questions of economics and economic pressures. Nonetheless, the basic point at issue in South Africa is the question of ownership. Because the races inhabiting the country disagree fundamentally on the answer of this question, the whole controversy is hopelessly tangled with racial factors, and on both sides these racial distinctions have become an unavoidable part of the struggle. And one cannot separate the issue of race from the argument about ownership at present, because one race insists on exclusive ownership. And for a period of 30 years, Oliver Tambo, Regional Tambo, had to steer the leadership of our movement under the most difficult period of representation by the brutal apartheid regime. He had to unite a movement whose majority of leaders were scattered all over the world. Some were in prison, some in the underground, and some in exile. And our message today resonates with his words of wisdom, which he expressed during the plenary session of the historic conference at Morogoro when he said, I quote, Comrade Matawat, "Beware of West drivers, watch their poisonous tongue, wage relentless war against disruptors and enemy agents. Our hope, comrades, is about expropriation of land without compensation. Our struggle is about nationalization of the Reserve Bank and other key sectors of our economy. Our struggle is about free education. Our struggle is about ensuring that we maintain national health insurance. Our struggle is about fighting corruption and all forms of crass materialism. We will always be inspired by the rich history of the struggle of the people of this great province of Limpopo. And we hope that we will continue, comrades, to take the stewardship in ensuring that there is unity and renewal of our movement. We are indeed proud of the leadership role of the great people of this province. And we hope, comrades, and we wish you that the newly elected Provincial Executive Committee will be equal to the task of uniting our movement, particularly during these testing times. Your task is to consolidate and ensure that the ANC receives an overwhelming majority in the forthcoming national general elections. And I conclude by telling you about 6 principles or disciples: organizational renewal, integrity of our movement, credibility of our structures, working together with our masses, working hard, comrades, and changing our lifestyle so that we become part and parcel of our people. You are the only hope, and I wish you all the best. And I think Comrade Stan, as the leader of the ANC, and all of us, from branch, region, national, province, and national, we shall have to hold hands, comrade, and ensure that we build this unity. Because if one comrade is not happy, it means it's one vote lost. If one member of society is not happy, it means it's one vote lost. We want to win even that one vote of that person you hate, and you don't have reasons why you hate that person, or that leader you hate, and you hate somebody with passion, and you have never even interacted with this person. But you are told that this is not the right leader. And it's only when you come closer to the leadership that you understand that this is the right leadership of the ANC. So beware the worst drivers. Have a wonderful conference, comrades. And with the hands of Oliver Tambo and Nelson Mandela, Peter Mugaba, Pax Mangaslan, Steve Schroeder, and many others, we must walk the talk. We must not just talk. We must not manage one another. We must build unity. It must be unity in action. The alliance must be united. The alliance must not be united only at national level. The alliance must be united at all levels. We must differ, comrades. We are different independent organizations. COSAP is a trade union. SICP is different from the ANC. The ANC is omnibus. We are expecting those who are more advanced cadres to have patience and educate and conscientize those who have joined the ANC even now, even yesterday. We are not equal. Our consciousness and the level of consciousness is not the same. Those who are having this high level of consciousness must be patient to educate these ones who still don't understand the ANC. Be patient and be tolerant. Don't lose. Don't be angry. Give them time and space. We need them. But if you know, comrades, that you are not at that level, don't rush to be in the leadership. Take time. Your time you will come. Be patient. Wait to be grilled and nurtured in the culture and traditions of the ANC. Be patient, don't rush. You will come into leadership at the right time. People will identify you. Leadership is not about, hey, comrades, please, I want to be chairperson. No, it's a foreign tendency. The branches and the membership of the ANC must identify you. You can't say I'm available even before nomination starts. I'm available, comrades. How do you know that you'll be nominated? So if we can do away with all those things, we are not in a competition. It's not beauty contest. We are in a liberation movement. And therefore we must be patient. Oliver Tambo, booyah, Tambo, oh Tambo, booyah, this was cocky. Oliver Tambo, booyah, Tambo, oh Tambo, Amandla, Amandla, Matla, Matla. Those are some